Iran has activated its terrorists in the Red Sea and has once again put Israel at the center of a naval threat that could affect trade routes, ships linked to Israel, and the security of the entire region. This Monday, June 8, 2026. The Houthi group, backed by Tehran and based in Sana'a, announced a total ban on Israeli maritime navigation in the Red Sea, after claiming that it launched missiles at sensitive targets in the Jaffa region. The militia tried to cloak the threat in religious rhetoric, talk of resistance, and attacks against the so-called American and Israeli enemy, but the concrete fact is something else. Iran's maritime arm has admitted that it will turn ships into military targets to pressure Israel, attack freedom of navigation, and expand the proxy war. What is Iran trying to hide? Why have the Houthis escalated now? How have Trump and Israel become central? Is Tehran under siege? I'll explain in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. The threat was announced by the Houthi forces in Yemen, a group that presents itself as a local military force, but operates aligned with the Iranian axis. The declared target was Israel. The chosen location was the Red Sea, a vital route for international trade and for maritime movement between the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Europe. The method was straightforward, declaring that any Israeli maritime movement in the region could be treated as a military target. The reason was also clear. The Houthis said they were acting in support of Iran, Gaza, Lebanon, and Iraq, showing that the operation does not come from an isolated decision by Yemen, but from a regional mechanism used by Tehran to spread pressure on several fronts. That's where their narrative starts to fall apart. When a militia says it's defending the people but threatens ships in the Red Sea, it's not protecting civilians, it's holding global trade hostage. When it talks about resistance but follows the same axis that involves Iran, Hezbollah, and other armed groups, it's not acting independently, it's serving as one of Tehran's pressure levers. Trump had already put this group in its rightful place. In 2025, the American government redesignated the Houthis, also known as Ansar Allah, as a foreign terrorist organization. This decision didn't come out of nowhere. It came after attacks in the Red Sea, threats against commercial vessels, ship hijackings, and actions that affected freedom of navigation. The difference now is that the new threat is happening within a bigger crisis, with Israel facing the Iranian axis, and Tehran trying to prove that it can still move its allies in different directions. Israel enters this episode as the main target of the blackmail. After military attacks and responses involving Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza, the Houthis decided to announce that the Red Sea could become a pressure zone against any movement linked to Israel. They say this is a reaction to the war. In practice, it's an attempt to surround Israel from the outside, using the sea as an extension of the land conflict. The group doesn't have the strength to face Israel directly on the same military level, so it tries to hit the sensitive point of navigation, where the threat doesn't need to destroy everything to create fear, cost, and instability. Iran appears as the main political beneficiary of this escalation. Tehran knows that when its allies attack from afar, the regime tries to keep a convenient distance. If it works, it sells the image of regional strength. If it goes wrong, it tries to say that each group acts on its own, but the Houthis' own statement breaks that excuse. They mention Iran, Lebanon, Gaza, and Iraq as part of the same camp. They talk about unity among the fronts. They assume that their battle is not just about Yemen. It's about protecting the Iranian axis at a time when Israel and the United States are tightening the siege. The risk for the world is not just with the Israeli ship. The risk is being Israeli. Today, the stated target is Israel. Tomorrow, it could be any vessel accused of having commercial, indirect, or political ties with Israel. It was exactly this logic that has already frightened major shipping companies in the past, when Houthi attacks in the Red Sea forced companies to change routes, go around Africa, and accept longer and more expensive journeys. The UN had already demanded that the Houthis stop attacks against commercial ships in the Red Sea. Even so, the group is once again raising its tone and announces a naval ban, as if it had legitimate authority over an international route. That's the difference between a state and a militia. A state is responsible for borders, population, diplomacy, and agreements. A militia uses missiles, propaganda, and threats to promote itself within a larger war. The real Yemen, with its people suffering for years, ends up becoming a political shield for a project that interests Tehran much more than the Yemenis themselves. Trump can use this escalation as proof that the policy of pressure against the Iranian axis was not an exaggeration. While opponents try to treat the Houthis as a local group with a limited agenda, the Sana Declaration shows an armed actor promising to attack Israeli shipping and expand operations according to events. This strengthens the American position of treating the group as a terrorist threat and not just a simple rebel movement. It also gives Israel more arguments to pressure its allies to see the Red Sea as part of the same containment war against Iran. The left usually twists this story. They try to sell the Houthis as resistance, try to paint Israel as a constant provocateur, and try to present Trump as someone who made the problem worse by calling a terrorist a terrorist. But what happened this Monday shows the opposite. When the group announces a naval blockade, threatens ships, and promises escalation, it confirms on its own why it needed to be dealt with firmly. The discourse of liberation becomes a smokescreen for a coercive operation. The word resistance becomes a label for maritime terrorism. The announced attack against the Jaffa region also serves a propaganda purpose. The Houthis say they have achieved their objectives and try to convey the image that they can strike Israel from a long distance. They want to show results to Iran, encourage militants, scare companies, and push Israel into a multi-front war. The naval threat serves as a megaphone. It's not just about immediate military damage, it's about creating a sense of siege. Israel now needs to deal with a front that mixes propaganda, missiles, and maritime threats. The response doesn't need to follow the Houthis' emotional script. It can be colder and more efficient. Intelligence, air defense, diplomatic pressure, naval surveillance, and holding accountable the axis that finances and encourages this kind of action. If Iran uses armed groups to create chaos, the natural path for Trump and Israel is to show that every arm activated by Tehran will have political, economic, and military costs. The Red Sea became a stage because the Houthis know that even a small threat there can have a big impact. They don't need to control the world. It's enough to create fear among insurance companies, shipping businesses, and governments that depend on safe routes. That's the nature of blackmail. The militia targets Israel, but it actually hits the stability of many others, and this choice could end up costing the very axis they're trying to defend. I'm Milson Alves, global, an internationalist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.